A group of scientists were digging for fossils in Tanzania, which is a country in eastern Africa, when they found the remains of a species of early humans that have never been seen before. They called the new species Homo habilis. Homo habilis, the first of our predecessors to have noticeable rise in brain size. They are a type of extinct archaic human that lived between 2.31 million and 1.65 million years ago in East and South Africa during the early Pleistocene. In comparison to Australopithecus or other older hominin species, the species, one of the oldest in the genus Homo, has a smaller face and teeth and somewhat larger brain case. However, it still possesses certain ape-like traits such as large limbs and relatively prognathic face. Homo habilis. What does it mean? The Latin word homo means human or man. To emphasize how closely related the species is to our own, it's given the same genus or group name as contemporary humans. This species is also believed to symbolize the earliest creator of stone tools. The Latin word habilis means handy or skillful, and so they were given the name handyman in 1964. Stone artifacts were discovered close to its fossil remains, leading scientists to believe that the species had learned how to shape stones into tools. In 1959, a team of scientists led by Louis and Mary Leakey made one of the most amazing historical discoveries from Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania. It was 2 teeth from the old ages. The search of Homo habilis officially began from there. The following year, fragments of boy skeletons were discovered there, and more fossils from other people kept turning up. The size of their brains, the characteristics of their hands and feet, and the possibility that they employed stone tools all pointed to the discovery of a new species of human ancestor. Although their inclusion in the human genus Homo was contentious, they were formally recognized as a separate species in 1964. More fossils, notably a 1986 finding of a fragmentary skeleton, have shown that the species was closer to apes than previous thought. Homo habilis, which is assumed to have descended from Australopithecines, was smaller than modern humans. They had arms that were disproportionately lengthened in comparison. However, its face was less projecting than that of the Australopithecines. High levels of sexual dimorphism were present in Homo habilis. The males were 114 pounds and stood 5 feet 2 inches in height. The females are 70 pounds and they stand 4 foot 1 inches in height. Their average brain volume is 650 cubic centimeters, whereas that of Australopithecus is less than 500 cubic centimeters. Compared to contemporary humans, its cranium was less than half as big. The shape of the habilis skull underwent substantial alterations due to their larger brain than earlier human relatives. Numerous other characteristics, such as limb proportions, are comparable to those of the early Australopithecines forebears. The face of Homo habilis species is less prognathic, and the skull has a more rounded appearance. They were more gracile than the Australopiths in terms of their head, face, and teeth. They have remarkable human-like teeth and dental arches. Although the teeth of early Homo were smaller than those of Australopithecus, their tooth enamel was still thick and their jaws were still powerful. This shows that their teeth were still adapted to biting some hard foods, possibly only seasonal when their preferred foods became less available. Dental microwear. Research suggests that Homo habilis had a flexible and adaptable diet and could consume a variety of foods, including some tougher ones like leaves, woody plants, and some animal tissues, but that they did not regularly eat or specialize in eating hard foods like brittle nuts or seeds, dried meat, or extremely hard tubers. The earliest cut and percussion mark bones, dating back to 2.6 million years ago, provide another source of information about the diet of Homo habilis. The oldest evidence is typically linked to these remnants of huge animal butchery, which are clear signs of meat and marrow consumption. Many scientists believe that early Homo, including Homo habilis, made and used the earliest stone tools discovered in the archaeological record, which also date back to about 2.6 million years ago. However, this hypothesis is challenging to test because many other early human species coexisted with Homo habilis at the same time and in the same region. In 1981, when cut marks were discovered on fossilized animal remains, it was assumed that Homo habilis had used these stone tools to butcher huge creatures. Stone tools production may have begun with them. This marked a substantial improvement in mental capacity and a shift towards new survival techniques. The scavenger theory proposes that Homo habilis obtained meat by scavenging rather than hunting. They believed as a confrontational scavenger and took kills from smaller predators like jackals or cheetahs. Habilis was more of a scavenger than a skilled hunter, but the older Paleolithic Oldowan tool set, which made use of stone flakes, is assumed to have been mastered by them. These stone flakes were more sophisticated than any tools ever made before, giving them the advantage it required to survive in adverse conditions that were previously too difficult for primates. The stone tools and abandoned materials, mostly blunt flakes and primitive chopping tools left behind by them, offer crucial insights into the behavior of these early humans. Oldowan tools have been abundantly discovered at Olduvai Gorge, and they frequently coexist with animal fossils. It was thought that they hunted and brought the animal carcasses to its home to be butchered because artifacts with bones were frequently found, but it is now understood that the reality was more complicated. There are a number of methods, some of which are unrelated to human behaviors. However, Olduvai Homo habilis utilized animal products undoubtedly. Tools were probably more to gather and prepare food from both plants and animals, digging tubers, cutting stalks, pounding to break down fiber, etc. They were also used for scavenging, slaughtering, skinning, cutting meat, and chopping open bones. Even while cut marks on some of the bones have been proven by the scanning electron microscope to have been produced by stone tools, this does not imply that any particular species was hunted. Analysis of the Olduvai animal fossils also reveals some bite marks created by rodent or carnivore teeth. This suggests that at least some of the creatures were preyed upon by non-hominin predators. The large corpses were most likely only available to the homines at Olduvai after the animals had been killed and partially consumed by other predators. Although Homo habilis was unquestionably a scavenger, it may have targeted small prey like antelope, given that Australopithecus garai, which dates to 2.6 million years ago, had been discovered with stone tool objects that are at least 100,000 to 200,000 years older than Homo habilis. It's debatable if habilis was the first hominid to develop stone tool technology. The habitat of the habilis species was primarily grasslands. A change in the temperature that made it drier and cooler may have encouraged the development of new feeding techniques like scavenging and tool use. According to chemical research, this species was primarily vegetarian but did consume some meat. The behavior of Homo habilis has occasionally been compared to that of baboons and savanna chimpanzees. Although it's purely conjecture, it is often believed that early hominids lived in polygynous societies. The group may have included 70 to 85 individuals. In order to protect the community on the perilous and exposed habitat, these communities are made up of multiple males. They occasionally put on a show where they throw rocks and sticks at intruders and predators to scare them away. Other Homo-like bipedal primates, such Paranthropus boisei, some of which thrived for many millennia, coexisted with Homo habilis. Paranthropus boisei vanished from the fossil record, whereas the habilis species became the ancestor of a whole line of new species, maybe as a result of its early tool innovation and less specialized diet. For 500,000 years, Homo habilis and Homo erectus may have coexisted in Africa. Although fossils discovered in the middle of the 1980s revealed that Homo habilis had more ape-like limb proportions, this species was once believed to be direct progenitor of modern humans. Rethinking a habilis species and its relationship to contemporary humans was promoted by this evidence. This species is no longer widely regarded as one of the direct ancestors by biologists, who have had instead placed it in a different branch of our evolutionary tree. Following the discovery of these skulls, the discussion on Homo habilis has progressed. Two of the skulls are highly similar to Homo ergaster, while one appears to have characteristics that are between Homo habilis and Homo ergaster, and many suggest a connection between these two species. If true, habilis might be the ancestor of modern humans, or they might have both descended from an unidentified species. When Homo habilis first appeared, there was a relative gap in the fossil record between 2 and 3 million years ago. Because of this, it's challenging to ascertain its origins in relationship to older Australopithecines. To answer this problem, more fossils evidence is required. Since they lived more than 1 million years ago, the exact reason for their extinction is not fully understood.